Star Trek will not be presented tonight, so that we may bring you the following special program.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Terrificon, Connecticut's biggest Comic Con, is back at the Mohegan Sun Expo Center in Uncasville, Connecticut on August 16th through the 18th. See your favorite stars from TV and film and shop for comic books, toys and memorabilia. With top creators from Marvel and DC, costume contests with prizes, and so much more. Tickets on sale now at terrificon.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show, but today a special Scene Missing conversation. John Suntress here. I'm happy to, as always, welcome my Scene Missing partner, Gabriel Hardman. And I want to introduce everybody to a good friend of mine. I had no idea he was doing this incredible film we're going to be talking about. My good friend from Century Guild, Thomas Negovan. Tom, great to see you. Welcome to Word Balloon.
It's very good to see you. It's been a long time.
It has. And Tom is one of the original patrons of Word Balloon, Gabe. Back in 2006, Tom, you were doing your publishing arm. And remind us of the name of your publishing company.
It's just Century Guild now.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But through Century Guild, Tom was republishing The Nocturnals, Dan Brereton's excellent series from the 90s. Yeah. And he's like, hey, man, how about if you interview Dan and do a podcast and we transcribe it and we put a bunch of Nocturnals art and a bunch of your other interviews you've done and we make a little Word Balloon comic book magazine. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. That was yeah, those were the first things I published. It was a long time ago, but yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. No, well, you honored me. Well, I here very quickly, we've got Kari watching, saying good evening. Thank you, Kari. We got a lot of people popping up on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for watching. But this is going to be interesting. I'm very excited to talk about this subject. Tom, an infamous movie from 1980, produced by Penthouse Magazine's own Bob Guccione. Yeah. We're talking about Caligula, but we're talking about The Ultimate Cut. Caligula was a very notorious movie. I had an older stepbrother that was a big, as any red-blooded teenager would be, grabbing porn, grabbing Penthouse and Playboy, and I found his secret stash. And I remember seeing in Penthouse, between the hot girls, ads for Caligula, because Guccione promoted the hell out of it in the magazine, obviously. I'm sure he did in Omni as well. Yeah, so, yeah. So, I mean, our first question is really like, what interested you to go back, get this movie, and do this ultimate cut? And I'll let you describe what that means when we say ultimate cut.
There's one thing that I just thought of. Have you seen the Bill Sienkiewicz poster?
I have not seen the Sienkiewicz poster. Oh, my God. You got Bill to do a poster?
Yeah, I just realized when you put that up that I was like,
oh, please, Tom, send it, and I will I'll send it through email, and I'll copy it and we'll put it on screen for everybody. But this is this is just the, I guess, poster. You tell me what this is.
That was the one that we made for Cannes for the festivals. I'm sending you a poster, but it's pretty big.
No problem.
But so
I'm excited. That's great.
Yeah, I want to see it.
Do you know about the Dave McKean stuff?
Well, yeah. I mean, the opening sequence. I mean,
okay.
Maybe we could start a little bit there. Just how you ended up with Dave McKean, for that opening sequence.
Well, okay, wait. So what should I start with?
Okay, we'll just go into
your audience would. I don't know. You tell me what.
Yeah, well, just your general approach to why you were interested in this and how you got into it. And we can leave Dave McKean for later.
Yeah, I mean the speaking with a friend answer is it started out as a job. It started out, where someone said, "Would you come look at this?" And what happened is Penthouse had changed hands quite a few times since Bob Guccione's day. Someone bought the company, and every time it transferred was this line item that there was a warehouse of Caligula materials. And the question was, would you come look at this and see if there's anything good here? And it was like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. They're just mountains of boxes that say Caligula original camera negative. And it wound up being over 90 hours worth of camera negatives. And my answer to the owner was, it's something. And I don't know what it is, but it's important and it's good. And eventually it wound up, I was saying, you should do this, you should do this. I was just kind of a consultant at first, but then it was like, okay, but will you do it? And the thing, I was starting to work on my own movie stuff at that time. And I was like, do I want to be derailed by this? But then I thought about it. And I felt like if the gate came down on that, vault, that it would close again for another 50 years. Mm-hmm. And my curiosity, and, we're comic book collectors, that feeling of like the twitching of like, oh, there's a treasure in there. And so I felt like I have to see what's in here. And I had never watched the movie, was never a fan, but I loved Malcom McDowell. And he'd always said, it's a terrible movie, don't watch it. But I know that I made a good movie. I knew that legend. And so that was where it started for me, was thinking, okay, at the very least, I'll be able to find a few things that we could use to expand the existing version. And then, fast forward, what wound up happening is we created a 3-hour edit that had not one frame that's ever been seen before. And it turned out so well that we got invited. We went from being 0 stars in Roger Ebert's Big Tome to being invited to premiere at the Cannes Film Festival.
That's very cool.
Man. And then Malcolm saw it. And a mutual friend, Mark Critch, is a comedian. He's got this show called Son of a Critch that Malcolm is on that's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
He texted me and said, Malcolm wants to call you. Can I give him your number? And I thought there was no way when I was working on this that anything affiliated with Caligula, that he would ever want anything to do with anyone with that. But he called and could not have been kinder and said, I watched the edit and I don't know what to say. I thought the world would never see this performance, and I'm speechless, and thank you, and I'm all behind it. And so that's been the whole thing. But, to kind of back up to the Dave McKean thing, when I got the job, I spent the first year really just studying footage. There's almost 100 hours. And listening to all the interviews with all the principals and really trying to get my head around what it was like to be there. And one of the key linchpins is that there was a scene that they never filmed. And that it was an opening scene that sets up there are multiple things in the movie that reference this scene. Why they didn't film it, I don't know what to tell you. But I was like, God, man, that scene is so important. And then I thought, well, it's in the beginning. We can do it as an animated sequence and then get it in there in the story to where it works, but it doesn't quite have to fit because it's a nightmare. And so I called Dave. I've known Dave for a long time, met at San Diego Comic-Con, a million years ago when we used to exhibit there. And we'd become good friends, over the past decades. And I said, this is going to be the strangest phone call that you've had in a long time. And he was like, okay, what does that mean? And I asked, I said, do you want to do an animated sequence for Caligula? And he was like, the porn movie? I was like, let me explain. And so, Dave is a filmmaker. Dave's a fantastic filmmaker.
Yeah.
And he does these paintings that are a series called Nitrate. And we sold a bunch of those in my gallery. And in my head, I was like, that's the look, that's the thing. And so, we bounced some things back and forth. But the beautiful thing about this job, I have to be really grateful to the investors for this. They were extremely hands-off in terms of just, letting me do what I wanted. So with Dave, it was kind of the same thing. I was like, you're Dave McKean. Like, I'm not going to micromanage you. Like, here's what it has to do. And he's like, what do you think of this or this or this? And it's that simple. It was a very, very fast art direction on my part. And of course, then not only did he do an incredible animation, but then he said, well, I imagine you'll want music and things like that for the opening. And we had a composer, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, but I didn't want to trouble you for more than I already was. And he's like, oh, I'd love to do the music. So the music in the opening sequence, he composed as well.
Interesting.
So it's like a little 3-minute short Dave McKean film, and it's as good as you would think it would be. It's everything you would expect a Dave McKean sequence would be.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm fan of his work. I have an original piece in the other room. So the first big change from the 1980 version is opening with him waking up from that dream. Is that and just more generally, like you're going by the Gore Vidal script, right?
Let me interrupt and say this.
What was your playbook, Tom? Yeah,
let's assume that people have seen this and we can talk like at the level where people.
Okay. Oh well, yeah. What should we not talk about?
No, it's fine. But what I'm saying is, because I'll address what you're saying. So when you watch the 1980 version, he is dreaming about frolicking with this beautiful naked woman that you don't know who it is. Then he wakes up sweaty like he's just had a nightmare. The camera pulls back. He's in bed with that woman. So from the first scene change, you already have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, how is that a nightmare? That's like every fantasy you would have. It's like beautiful.
Right.
So that's
and that turns out to be
right. But you don't know that at that time. Yeah. So it's just crazy. And so later, the idea is that in the script, he's dreaming about the lineage of murder and death, and the idea that these people pass into godhood as they die. So later, when he's at Tiberius's funeral and he says it's just like the dream where you were having sex with your sister in the woods, like what does that have to do with this?
Right.
Sure.
And so that's what the entire movie is like, where there's things that don't make sense. And John, my wingman on this, the guy who edited it, was Aaron Shaps.
Help me out. Is that Irving Shapp? Is that the letterer from? Is he related to
Aaron Shaps, General Jack Cosmo back in the day?
Oh, sure.
I know you know him if you saw him, but yeah.
Yes. Well, but certainly Jack Cosmo and the whole concept. Yeah, I totally forgot his name. Absolutely. Very cool.
He and I had been working on movie stuff together, and he was helping with this. And then when we were trying to find an editor, it was just like, there was such a huge learning curve. And Aaron was like, well, can I try to do it? And he edited a movie that was good enough to get into Cannes. That's first time out. It went great.
You got to send me his contact info, because truly, I think he did a hell of a job. And if I may say, just in general, for people who haven't seen the movie or don't even know the Roman history, Caligula was young emperor, followed Tiberius, played by Peter O'Toole. I even got a Peter O'Toole picture right here for you. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
And very decrepit Peter O'Toole in this movie. And there's Malcom McDowell. And Caligula once becomes emperor, as Tom pointed out, haunted by the thought that these guys, aren't emperor anymore by death. And that's how succession of who rules Rome and, the piece of the world that Rome owns.
Yeah.
Big deal. It's a lot of politics. So during his time in the movie goes mad. There are a series of orgies that obviously lean into the Guccione side, but that's your Roman holidays, and that's fine. And it's this great, it really is this very cool movie, and it's got this amazing all-star cast. John Gielgud is in the film. I showed you O'Toole and Malcolm McDowell, and a very young 1976 or whenever they made the movie, Helen Mirren.
Look at that prosthetic belly.
Yeah,
yes, that's Helen Mirren.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, and truly, Tom, I'm not being nice. This is a movie that if people enjoy your classic Roman films, Quo Vadis, great to compare this to the I, Claudius miniseries of Masterpiece Theater, because they cover the same territory. In that iteration, it was John Hurt who played Caligula. There he is. But it's really, the differences are fascinating. So as Gabe asked you, who or what was the script? Was that your playbook? And I would also ask, because as I understand it from the original shoot, they took Vidal's script, but also took a lot of rewriting as well.
Yeah.
Explain to us your playbook.
And one thing I would comment on is, I think that, and again, knowing you have a comic audience, I think that I would say far more than if you're interested in I, Claudius. I would say if you're a fan of Grant Morrison, because this movie at this point, and Grant and I did a commentary for the DVD on the film. It's a symbolist film at this point, and there's some like weird fourth wall stuff, and he realizes that he's a character. And when he's destroying his faces and he's like, you don't exist. There's a lot of weird ego, metaphysical, hermeticism stuff in it. And so the thing that we used as the template, so Gore Vidal's script was, what's the word I'm looking for? It was really bad. It was very bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah.
It was really bad.
Do you think he did it for the money?
No, I think, you know what? No, because in the beginning, there was no money. He originally...
Really?
Interesting.
Okay.
Franco Rossellini was Roberto Rossellini's nephew.
Okay.
He approached Gore with a failed project for his uncle and said, I've got this treatment for Caligula. Would you like to do something with it? He said, Caligula, yes. I don't want to see the treatment. I want to do my own thing. So he wrote a script called Gore Vidal's Caligula to differentiate it as being his. And it's very vignette-y. Like, it feels like a bunch of separate scenes, and it's very two-dimensional. And I remember when he and Tinto Brass were arguing publicly, he said, I told Gore he needs to shut his mouth or else I'll start publishing his script. Like, people were just, it was. And so I'm a huge Gore Vidal fan, but the script was not a great movie script.
Sure.
Okay.
And so what happened was that Tinto Brass and Malcolm McDowell started rewriting it. And Malcolm brought in a playwright named Ted Whitehead, who came out to Rome. They started rewriting it. And Gore complained and said, they're playing some of my scenes, but they're changing the context and turning them on their head. And the reason was that even though Gore said it's about the corrupting influence of power, what he wrote was that the guy was just born a madman. Like, from shot one, the guy's crazy.
Yeah.
And Malcolm said that's boring to play.
Yeah. There's no art.
So Tinto wanted some black humor, wanted a little more political tonality that could be perceived as modern. And Malcolm wanted this character to have a really compelling arc. He was coming off of A Clockwork Orange, Oh Lucky Man. So he was at his peak as a performer. He knew how to do the beats. He knew all of that. And so it's more the Malcolm McDowell version than the Gore Vidal version.
Interesting.
In the beginning, I thought we would be using Gore's script until I got into it. And it's like, they didn't film a lot of this. And as I started to do my research, I realized how much of it of what was shot was actually things that came from Malcolm or Tinto.
Right.
And so we had that as a starting point, but the filming was just chaotic. Everybody was fighting with each other. The actors were kind of left on their own because you had all of the producer and writer and director. It's horrific. And so a lot of what was filmed, there are things that were filmed last minute as afterthoughts. There's things that were part of kind of alleyways that didn't go anywhere. There's scenes they just didn't shoot. In the final moments, Tinto was tearing out pages of Peter O'Toole's script just to get rid of him. And so the thing that I had to do, and again, your audience is a lot of creatives, so I know they'll get this. The thing that I had to do was figure out how to really genuinely understand what everybody wanted. But then I had to do what I thought was right.
Sure.
And so the great thing about doing this with Aaron is Aaron and I had been working on our own creative stuff together. So we were just constantly in sync with that. So when we were pulling shots or adapting scenes or doing any of that, it was pretty easy to, to nudge it into the direction that I think was a little more what Aaron and I wanted to see.
Sure.
So it's not really a Tinto Brass version. It's definitely not a Gore Vidal version. Tinto edits in a weird way. He would have leaned into probably a lot more mania and craziness. So the thing that we mostly did is just I was fixated on Malcolm McDowell. And any of the debates that we had, Aaron and I, that was always the arbiters. Does it pull Malcolm's arc forward?
Right. So Tinto Brass shot the initial version of this, but he didn't get a credit on the original, the 1980 release either. Neither did Gore Vidal. They pulled their credits, right? Or Tinto gets a credit, but it's not a director credit.
They sued to have their name removed. I'm actually just texting to tell them to be quiet downstairs. I hear them being loud. So what happened is that it was going to be Gore Vidal's Caligula. And they hired Tinto because they thought Tinto would be malleable, which was a huge mistake.
And it's weird based on his previous things, right? I mean,
it's like that line in Species where they're like, "Oh, we made the creature a female because we thought it'd be more manageable and
right."
But you don't get out much.
But I mean, he right before this, he made that crazy Salon Kitty with Nazis and
ended in a lawsuit with the investors. So, I don't know what they were thinking. So they hired him. And then Guccione hired Danilo Donati, who was an Academy Award-winning set designer. Most of us will probably know him because he did the sets for Flash Gordon.
Right.
So he then made this kind of Mussolini-era-inspired version of ancient Rome, and Gore showed up and lost his mind. He said it looked like the lobby of the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami Beach, and Tinto barred him from the set. They started warring. He went on the Mary Hartman show and said Caligula is Latin for turkey, and started proceedings of wanting to get his name removed. And so basically, I think he gave back the money, got his name removed. No, he got his name removed, but then gave up his share of the theoretical profits. And then Tinto didn't get fired until after they were finished. Okay. But by the time the movie came out, it had no director, no writer, no editor, and no composer.
Right.
Like that's
and Guccione shot a bunch of stuff after principal photography.
Yeah, they finished at the end of December in 1976, and in January of 1977, Bob went back onto the set with a dozen or so penthouse pets and hired all the same extras, used all the same costumes, and then filmed a bunch of hardcore sex that, unbeknownst to Tinto, he'd been kind of planning for a couple months to do this. He didn't fire Tinto until a couple months later, but it was like he had this in the can. Like, I think at that point he knew that he was going to be firing this guy and was just kind of setting his ducks up.
Right.
And then there were 3 years of lawsuits and, Tinto suing and Gore suing and all that other stuff. It took 3 years to get it done. And then when it came out, there was no resemblance to what had been shot. Things were just intercut. There's scenes where costumes change because it's the same room, but different scenes. And the negatives, there were entire negatives that came out of the camera, went into the can, and no one ever touched until we pulled them out.
Okay, so when you're looking through, you have all this negative, and I assume that they people paying for it were very interested in this if they were getting all of that transferred, but just so that you could look through it. But was it when you're looking through this stuff, is it clear to you what's first unit Tinto brass stuff? What the things are that, apart from the hardcore sex, which makes it pretty obvious, the things that Bob Guccione shot later, like. Are you deliberately excluding all the Guccione stuff? Are you only focusing on the first unit stuff?
The only stuff that Bob Guccione shot, there was one sequence that I'd seen photos of that I knew that he shot, but that footage was not in there. I don't, who knows over the years, maybe one box had ended up somewhere else or something. But the things that he was shooting were one scene in a room. They were just really, really select things. Like we knew there were 4 things, I think, that he shot. And we really only had one of them, which was some of the orgy material. But Tinto Brass had sex going on his set, too.
Yeah, right.
Right. So it wasn't really... the way that we started out promoting this was it's going to be Gore Vidal's script and we're taking out the Bob Guccione footage. Right. It's kind of a generalization. I think the reality is that Bob just didn't shoot. There may be a couple shots in there that accidentally were Bob's. I think a lot of what he shot was lit poorly, and so you might not be able to tell.
Look, I just rewatched the original one, and there are definitely some poorly lit shots that, especially in the later part with the orgy stuff, where it just feels like it's shot against, Muslim or something.
So
how much? Oh, please finish your thought, Tom.
No, I was going to say, so that the real thing that we did is we just looked at the mess and said, this is what we have. And then the moment that it broke open is, and again, this is another reference I can say here, is I couldn't get my head around everybody saying this is going to be a realistic view of ancient Rome. And then I'm looking at footage of a 3-story decapitation machine and women in like 4-inch platform silver heels. And I'm like, I don't know about platform heels. I don't know about an elevator. I don't like all of this stuff. And then I realized I was thinking about the Jodorowsky Borgia graphic novels. And in my head, I thought like Meta Barons and stuff. I thought I think of this like a Jodorowsky graphic novel where it's history adjacent, where it's like, it's just, maybe it's kind of historical, but then you start working with Mobius or whatever, and next thing you know, the girls are running around in platform heels, and and so in that moment, that's where Aaron and I, when I said that, Aaron said that's perfect, and I was like, all right, that's where it makes sense. And so, the Guccione's contribution really, ultimately, wasn't even about the porn that he shot. It was the fact that there was no storyline. There was no sense of narrative. There was no sense of taste. There was no elegance to it. There was no flow. Like, there's probably a universe where you could have had some of that in there if it was just placed differently. You can't have two characters talking and then like cut away and it's like someone's getting a blowjob in another room. It's like it has nothing to do with anything. So it was just pretending the 1980 version had never come out and making a narrative that was really strong and made sense. It's very sexy. There's tons of erotic content.
Yeah.
Tons of violent content. But I feel like it works better in the context of having a plot and, you know, and my nervousness was, Aaron and I liked it, but who were we? And so it was kind of like, is this good? Is this good? And so then the number one thing was getting invited to Cannes was like, wow. And then number two was getting the call from Malcolm. And in that moment, I was like, okay, like I kind of breathed a sigh of relief. I'm like, anything after this is irrelevant. Like on an industry level, we have the respect. And then on the person who was physically there, whose work we're trying to present, that he was so moved by it.
Totally.
I'm a rambler, man. I'm sorry. I don't know if I answered you.
No matter, Tom, all of this is great. You've got all the answers.
I'm just talking like I'm talking to John here. So yeah, go ahead.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
No, and truly, really, I've got. Listen, when we do Scene Missing, we get a lot of word balloon fans. Really like when we do this stuff, and they are really interested in, as I was telling you off the air, about the films that aren't necessarily the obvious big classics and stuff, but are ones that are interesting for various reasons. Literally, as you know, you made a coffee table book about the project. Tell me about that. And I mean, obviously, you got a great opportunity to take a lot of the assets and do some great photos, I would imagine. But yeah, tell me about the book and what you wanted to do with the book.
The book is not out yet.
Okay.
One of the other things that was in this space were just a lot of photographs, a lot of images that were behind the scenes, things people hadn't seen. So it was just my real idea originally was that it was meant to just draw more attention to the movie. And so for me, the nerd in me was like, well, I want people to get to see this. I don't want these to just go unseen. But the real intention is just wanting to treat the material as respectfully as possible and to get to look at beautiful photos of Helen Mirren and Malcolm and Peter O'Toole hanging out and talking to Gore Vidal and whatever else. So that's something, like I said, it's not out yet. That's what really keeps happening is that so many things keep happening with Caligula that it just keeps like not letting me get that to the printer. Every day when I think I'm done with Caligula stuff, it's coming out in theaters next week.
That was going to be my next question. Very cool.
Yeah. And so it'll be also on some pay-per-view on the 16th. And then over the next couple of weeks, it goes to other platforms. And every weekend it opens in more cities. But LA and New York are next week. And I'll be at the New Art Theater in LA, not this coming Saturday, but the following Saturday, doing a Q&A.
17th.
17th, yeah. 17th.
And is Malcolm will be there as well for that Q&A?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I saw him promoting another viewing in LA, probably around the same time or whatever. So, that's where I guess
that was probably one of the festivals. He's in Newfoundland filming Son of a Critch right now. If you haven't seen it, you've got to watch it.
What do you know what platform it's on? I'll have to look it up.
I don't.
No problem.
I just type it in and go to it. It's on one of those streaming.
And that's the great thing, because he is so active now that it is wonderful to have something new that people can look at and go, as you said, this is young Malcolm McDowell. This was the guy that had the juice, Clockwork Orange, Oh Lucky Man, etc. I mean, these are wonderful films, and it's fun that he, like a Jack Lemmon or some of the other old greats, is still a vital part of what's going on, and people love him.
When you were saying that, it made me think of this, like, my relationship was with this young Malcolm, because every day for years I'm looking at him. And the thing that I really kind of, like, speaking of nudity, he's nude in it. But I look at,
yes, he is. Peter O'Toole?
No, Malcolm.
Or Malcolm. Yeah, that's true.
I look at him in this movie and I think he's 81 now. And I think about what a unique experience it is for a performer that's had the career that he's had to have this time capsule of one of his best performances, where he's literally just the best looking you've been in your life, like that point, and have no one in the world have ever seen it. And then it comes out, and it's like he's got this young leading man, spectacular leading role at 81 that just comes out. It's like a weird time machine, body swap kind of thing. I don't know. I just think it's an interesting thing that, that it's a lost film.
Well, and on the other side of that, Helen Mirren. I mean, and what's her response been to this uncovering?
I can't say publicly because she hasn't said publicly.
Fair enough.
Well, she does.
Everybody's very nice.
And she has a much bigger part in your cut of it. I mean, she in the original, in the 80 version, it feels like she has 3 lines in the movie.
Yeah, so, she's less than 8 or 9 minutes, and in this one, she's almost an hour.
Yeah,
she carries the entire third act.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes, absolutely.
It's a great character, and
was that the progression of when she was introduced? Like you said, she doesn't show up until Act 2, really.
Right.
So and was that how it was designed, or again, is that your narrative?
No, that was their narrative.
Okay.
The only stuff that we did that was the only things that I think that we did that I would say were in contrast to what they might have been doing is we switched some scene order. There's the scene in the kitchen that's extremely, you lose all respect for Caligula at that point. Yeah. Well, then there's the scene where he makes love to his wife and sister. And in everybody's version of the script, that came after. And Aaron said, we got to put it earlier. I got to credit Aaron with that. And without thinking, I said, why are you bringing this up? And he said, because once he commits the violence that he does there, no one's ever going to go back to him. That's it. We've lost everybody at that point. I was like, all right, fair point. And then the other thing is just that, sequentially, I think that we leaned more into the things that could be, I guess it's kind of like reality TV, right? You can edit footage to make it look like anything. And
well, that's filmmaking too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I just mean like, you can have 6 perspectives and have it all. And so I do think that the way that we leaned into, like, one of my favorite shots, this was the first shot when I got goosebumps when I was going through the footage when I was scanning. There's a part in the original movie where you're looking at it's Malcolm. So, Caligula dies in the end. So anybody that was thinking that was a spoiler, we'll ruin it. So what happens is in the first third of our version, he's living under the shadow of this emperor that murdered his parents and his brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. So the thing that we were trying to convey was the idea that this terrifying creature of a man is killing people at the drop of a hat, and that he could be next. And so we wanted to create that really young, innocent sense. Small figures, big rooms. Then when he gets the ring, it's kind of a little Wagnerian that he in that moment shifts. So then he's got power and he starts treating people like playthings. And then his sister dies. And when his sister dies, he becomes completely untethered from reality.
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of the 3 acts. And the last act is when he's just, coming to terms with all of these existential things. And so the moment that for me was the first goosebump moment is when he comes back after his sister has died. This is the start of the 3rd hour. He's been wandering through the sewers and the streets of Rome, and it's like Orpheus in the underworld. And he comes back and he, addresses the Senate. And it's the speech of, I am a god. And then just for fun, he pulls a cord to make all of the fabrics come down on them and starts buying at them like sheep and making his giant friend that he met in prison, herd them. And in the 1980 version, the camera just pans up and to the right a little bit for no reason and then fades to the next scene. Well, I'm watching the raw footage, and in those takes, Helen Mirren is up on that balcony, and it looks at her, and she's laughing. And she's laughing at the proceedings, and then you see awareness come over her face. And she went from being like the good time ride or die chick, loving the fact that this rich guy has taken her in, is leading her around on a leash, and she realizes this could go badly. And so you see her face kind of fall. But then the thing that she does, and this is where you get into that Grant Morrison thing a little bit, she turns and she looks at the camera. And that's when I started to realize, okay, there's some elements in this that are so universally different than anything that was in the 1980 version. And so the other thing then that we did is that there are things that we leaned into that were more in that Grant Morrison, Alejandro Jodorowsky kind of metaphysical way of looking at things. And I started talking to Aaron about this, and we started looking at it from that hero's journey perspective, and then looking for, you've got him going in the underworld. At the end, there's a thing where he ascends these marble steps, and in Hermeticism, that's a transformation ritual. And so there's all these things that we were able to select things to kind of nudge that forward. So that's the other thing that we did that I'm certain that was not in Tinto's mind, but it just, the cards fell that way. There was enough footage there that you could, do that.
Sure.
And so, yeah, so those were the big ways that I think.
Did you have issues with the audio? I mean, in the original version, whole performances are ADR'd, and and like, what did you have to deal with as far as like? I imagine this is mostly production audio that you're dealing with. Like,
are you ready to lose half your listeners? Are you ready? Do you want me to say it?
Good. Yeah.
We used AI.
Oh,
Here's why.
All right.
The technology that Peter Jackson developed. So it started with the feds. The feds used to point the microphones at the Italian restaurant, and they were trying to figure out how to separate individual voices from kitchen sounds, all of that. That was the origin of this technology. Peter Jackson used it on Get Back. So everybody on the set, the audio was unusable.
Yeah. Well, it's Italian as well, so
no, not even that. It was the fact that they were working.
Yeah.
So you have like Malcolm saying, I love you with all my heart, and then you hear like hammering in the background and someone going, "Hey, Fantule," whatever the curse words are in the background. You're hearing that. When the big one is when Nerva is in the bath, when John Gielgud is in the bath, the motor, the pump that kept the water moving in there, was so loud that it was like if a lawnmower was over my shoulder. It was so loud. The audio was completely unusable. And so I thought we were going to have to put a disclaimer on the front, just saying, look, we're working from bad source, not bad, we're working from whatever, original sources. And so from the time that we started the project until the time that we were finishing, the technology had developed so much that we were able to train AI to recognize what was John Gielgud and take away everything that was not John Gielgud.
Right.
So that's why I've had a lot of different opinions on some of the AI stuff, in the sense of I used it for something that you wouldn't have. Those performances, there are performances by Peter O'Toole, definitely Malcom McDowell, that John Gielgud one for sure. And then the one most of all was Teresa Ann Savoy.
Right. And she's dubbed through the whole original cut of it, right?
It's not her.
Yeah.
An American or British
that's what I mean.
actress doing her voice. We were able to rescue her voice.
Wow.
Is she
still with us?
No.
Okay. There was a real fast. Helen Mirren, Malcolm McDowell, anyone else?
Mirella D'Angelo and one or two of the other Italian actors that have kind of fallen off the radar.
Continue with the AI talk, please.
So the thing is that we were able to salvage her performance. And so, and not just her, there were 4 or 5 of the other actors that we were able to salvage. And it was because, even though this was just meant to be placeholder audio, we were able to use technology to bring it back. And I was so pleased. Kevin Dippold is the guy that was doing all our audio magic. And I couldn't be happier.
That's great, man.
With how that worked out. Yeah.
And obviously, and Word Balloon listeners know, there's a big difference of using AI in that way than generating a script, generating art.
Right. It's not. I mean, it's not based on the theft of other people's work. It's
no. I mean, I was making a joke. It was more the idea of like.
It's good that you bring it up, because
like
truly,
when people would have where they'd block the word Trump coming up in their feed. If anything had, I'll be like, oh, this has AI in the transcript. I'm not watching it.
I don't even want to look at it. Exactly.
But so I mean, to me, that's an example of where that's everything is, there's 2 sides to each coin. To me, that's the positive. The positive is, that it's a supercomputer. And
well, I mean, but everybody also talks about AI in a very generalized way that covers a whole bunch of different kinds of things that,
sure.
And some of them are very disreputable, but like
here is Sienkiewicz's poster.
Cool.
Which looks amazing. It doesn't surprise me. That's beautiful.
The theatrical one has the text at the bottom and some quotes on it and stuff, but that's the base. And the logo's by Dave McKean. That's the logo from the film.
Nice.
And that's the. I mean, he's obviously crazy good.
Bill's the best.
He's Bill.
Exactly, man. That's awesome. Oh, and Kari tells us that the Son of a Critch show is on CW.
Very cool.
There you go. Excellent.
It's it's really good. And Bill was a huge emotional support for me during the making of this movie. And obviously you guys know him. I mean, he's one of the nicest people in the world.
Absolutely.
He's just unbelievably cool. And there are silk screens at Coda Curates. It's basically the guy that was the co-founder of Mondo Posters. And he teamed up, his name is Rob Jones. He teamed up with Spoke Art, which is Ken Harmon. And they had him at San Diego Comic-Con, and there's still some left, but they made a glorious silk screen of that poster. And so
that's great.
Yeah, those turned out really cool.
Man, that'd be a great shirt. Absolutely. That's very cool.
No, not a shirt. It's a silk screen poster.
Oh, it's a poster. Excuse me.
And then there's also a poster that Dave McKean made that I don't know when they're releasing it. They're doing something in the UK with it.
Tom, I wasn't sure with the screener you sent me if I could take screen caps of Dave's sequence. Well, I didn't know if my thing would do it, so that's why unfortunately I wasn't able to show the art. But it really is great. And again, it's truly the way I think you laid this out. I really think, like I said, it will not only redeem a lot of people's thoughts on the movie, but also it will bear comparison to, like I said, Quo Vadis and some of the other great Roman films of its day, or probably previous days.
I'll do this. I'll give you guys an exclusive here. Let me find the
of Dave stuff.
The problem is I typed the word Dave in, and now
every Dave you know.
Oh my God! No, it's all Dave McKean stuff, but it's just an absurd number of like all kinds of paintings and drawings and.
That's great. You mentioned nitrate, and I'm so glad you did, because you were kind enough to help arrange the interview that I was able to do with Dave about those series of paintings. And for people who don't know, we kind of glossed over it, but nitrate really is Dave's these beautiful paintings Dave made that were inspired by a lot of very early films. That George Millet from The Earth to the Moon, he one of his pieces inspired by a Millet film. Really great, unbelievable stuff.
Well, when he was a kid, he got this book. Oh God, what's it called? It was something about. I can't remember the name of it. It was like a history of film book, but I had the book. A lot of us did, and there was something about those old silent film images that really intrigued him, and you see it in his work.
Sure.
But so those nitrate paintings are. I personally think they're the best thing that he's done, because I think I see in him that connection to like his inner 10-year-old, the kid that was, and I see the best of him now with that spirit. So yeah, look those up if anybody is watching. I just emailed you the Dave poster.
Oh, great.
But yeah, it's, I could talk for days for days about this.
Well, I also think that it's just an interesting thing to be able to look at a completely different version of a movie that already exists, right? I mean, it's not it's not just a kind of director's cut type thing with a couple scenes added or something like that. I mean, you're approaching it and using different takes of everything, and just as on the filmmaking front, it's really interesting to look at completely different approaches to the exact same footage.
Yeah, but also even more. I mean, I'm agreeing with that, but to elaborate, it's also, there's probably, I should get this number, but more than half of the movie, I think, are narrative that no one's seen in any shape or form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the entire last hour of the movie, if you're watching the two of them together and you've got them both open, you look at the old one and there's like 15 minutes left. Then you look at the new one and there's still like an hour 20 left.
Mm-hmm.
That's how many scenes don't exist. Incitatus being made consul. There's a lot. There's an awful lot. A lot with Malcolm and Helen interacting, really driving the narrative of what's going on with him. And none of that exists in the 1980 version.
Yeah.
He's just kind of crazy and a bunch of people have sex and he gets killed. And in this one, it's all development. So yeah, anybody interested in storytelling, or that's why I said, like, I would never even think to recommend this to people that like history films, because to me, it's flat. The sets look like Flash Gordon. It's a weird movie. I would say it's more like if you're a fan of Heavy Metal Magazine, or you're a fan of, the weird world of comics that kind of lean into that, adjacent reality type.
And in your cut, we get much more of those sets. I mean, you're using these big wide shots. You're using the stuff that sold those sets too.
Yeah,
that you don't see in the original.
And they are weird, and they are definitely 80s kind of, like you said, Flash Gordon-y and stuff. But they also they're gigantic, and I think it's awesome that you really are able to exploit that.
Yeah.
And here, real fast, here's the McKean, not real fast, but here's the McKean poster, everybody. Very cool.
Yeah.
So I think they're doing a giveaway at some of the theaters this weekend. Like a raffle, not a raffle, but like a lot, whatever the thing is, where it's like a random thing where they're giving away like some signed posters from Dave. And then I think we're going to try to do something like that at the New Art with the Bill one, but we're working on it right now. But they're both great, very, very different, and just two fantastic artists and people I was very grateful to have involved in this. I felt very well supported by my community.
Slightly off topic, but kind of in the realm of what we're talking about. Weren't you good friends with Michael Zulli?
No.
Oh.
Michael Zulli hated me.
Truly. I did not know that. I apologize.
No, it's fine. I had no. So Michael Zulli created a book called Fracture of the Universal Boy, which was outstanding. And he couldn't find anyone to publish it. And I said that I would do it. And so I scanned everything and I said, we should really take this to Kickstarter. It was early in Kickstarter. I'd had great success with Jeremy Bastian and Cursed Pirate Girl. At the time, it was the best funded comic Kickstarter. I said, this is what we want to do. And he said, no, I want to go through, previews. And I'm not saying this stuff to badmouth. I'm saying because I do think there's a lesson in here for creators. And I said, okay, but then you're going to have to do a lot of promotion. He said, well, I don't want to promote it because this is what I made in the past. And I want to live in my present and future. And I kind of said as a joke, well, your present and future is you're trying to sell this book. Like nobody knows about it. And he said, one tweet from Neil Gaiman and we'll sell a couple 100,000 copies. And I said, I don't know that is true. And so he wouldn't do any interviews. Neil did tweet about it. And we sold very, very few copies in pre-order. And he got very, very depressed. And then the friend who'd asked me if I would help him out then took the project over and said, well, Michael, what about doing a Kickstarter? And at that point, he said, I don't care, whatever you want to do. And they did a Kickstarter and it was great and it got funded. But so there was a lot of, and also in between that, I had brought him out to Comic-Con and I genuinely liked Michael. But there was so much going on that was a lot of kind of artistic, kind of preciousness that I would argue with him in a friendly way. At the end of the day, it's his decision. It's his art. All I'm going to do is give the, but it went badly. And I was kind of the collateral damage in that of this bad feeling that he had was, it didn't work with me. And so, I wound up supporting the next release and all of that and promoting it and, making sure that I helped in whatever way I could. But we didn't talk again. And it was just kind of a weird thing. And I do feel like, I was always in a really weird position in the sense that I owned a gallery and I was publishing but like I came into this as a creative person. And so my intention was always fulfillment and empowerment. Like, how do you make this thing happen? And I felt very lucky that I had good tactical skills in terms of saying, okay, well, here's how you lay this. What do you want to happen? Here's how we do it. But it's, there's that cliche of if you give somebody a chance, that's all they need. And that's been true in my life so often that I believe that story when someone says it to me. And then there's times where then you realize as you're in it, okay, no, that's not what the problem was. The problem isn't just that they needed a chance. It's that, it's a very hard thing ever to be a creative person. And it only gets progressively worse as our culture devalues art and thinks that everything should be free and all of that. So I'm extremely empathetic to it. The older I get, the less I will argue with someone if they don't want to take my advice. But that's just kind of what happened with him. It was, like I said, it was not any kind of fight. There was nothing weird. It was literally just that he wouldn't take any of my suggestions and thought he knew what it should all be. And then it didn't work. And he got, very, very kind of distressed. But if you have not read Fracture of the Universal Boy, it's unbelievable. It's his best work. It's his personal story. It's unbelievable. And it was one of those situations where even when they were asking me, would you help put this out? Same thing like with Caligula. I was looking at it and I was like, no one will publish this. What is wrong with people? It's so good. And it's one of those things you look at. I'm like, I know I'm going to lose money on this, but it's got to happen. And so, yeah, and I feel like it's criminal that more people haven't read it. It's, he's a very, very talented artist. And he put his soul into that story.
Wow.
That's my.
Well, I'm glad you told it though. I'm glad you told, because truly, again, I think there are a lot of people here that are watching and listening that want to, attack crowdfunding and things like that. It is good to hear stories like this in terms of.
And a thing that I can say about that is like, I was working at the same time with him and then with Dave McKean. It's like, talk about polar opposites. Like, Dave is so extraordinary as a human being and so open to intelligent conversations and so wired for his own success and being collaborative in that, that it's the thing that I would just say to people that are struggling is that there are lessons when you hear people like Bill Sienkiewicz talk. It's like, it's not an accident that he's that good and that successful. Like, he's a good person. He's very smart. Like, he gets his ego out of the way. There's none of that like fainting couch version of art and stuff like that. I feel like the people that I've had challenges with, I mean, I'm saying this kind of as a joke. I don't mean it to be demeaning, but it's a cliche people will get. It's like every artist that I've had a problem with, there's some degree of a fainting couch being in the room where it's like there's some kind of drama internally. And I feel like I empathize with it creatively, deeply and deeply. And there's people that I call to keep me from getting into that. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you're doing it for yourself, you can do whatever you want. But if you want to be asking people to give you money for what you're doing, you have to also respect that commerce is its own creature, and you have to do that dance, and you have to have that relationship. And this is not anything I'm sure people haven't heard before, but then you start. I mean, look at David Mack. Like, how easy is that guy to work with? Incredibly. I just mean, like, he makes it easy, and he's very smart, and and I just think about David Mack, Bill Sienkiewicz, Kent Williams, like all those guys are just, they make it easy. So I don't know. Sorry, Gabriel, if I'm attacking your tribe in any way.
No. Look,
you would say that stuff.
I'm a tougher man than that. I don't. You can't.
But that's the thing. you kind of have to be. Wouldn't you say that to an artist? You're like,
well, I mean, look, I work in movies. I like my whole career has been, dealing with difficult people, telling, my work being thrown out, all of that stuff, so it's not like I'm maybe not, I have a heart of stone when it comes to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, my heart goes out in an enormous way because I respect so deeply that creative spark. And when I see that in someone, my instinct is always, how do I block the wind and let them get it to wherever? And so there's a lot of people I've worked with that I've tried to do that with. And the thing that's just sad for me is like, and this is a big thing I keep saying about AI. I don't think AI is the problem. The problem is that culturally, we've devalued art as an entire culture.
Sure.
And so now we reap the benefits, which is that now you do some shitty AI thing and you get someone that's got like a really devoted attention to their craft. And 99% of the people on the internet can't tell the difference or don't care. It's like, oh, she's got 7 fingers, but look how big her tits are. It's like stupid, it's just dumb. They're just not looking at. And, so that's it. So I do feel like it's a really rough time for creatives. And I'm optimistic. This is, we're super off subject, but I'll say this. I think that there's going to be a backlash to what the technology is doing. All of the music and AI stuff, I think there's going to be a backlash to it.
I mean, it will have devastated, many, many people and many jobs and all that sort of stuff in the meantime. But I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I hope very much. I will say this. I'm an enormous fan of crowdfunding. I love that idea, that 1,000 fans idea. If you can find 1,000 fans, you can make a living. And we do all of our publishing projects with crowdfunding now. We do all these art books and that's the way we do it. And we could not function in the previous model of what an art publisher is. But at this point, we're able to do that. And it is because of crowdfunding. So I would just say that, like, if creatives are feeling like, I can't get a break, like, I would hate to be a traditional comic publisher right now. I feel like, you're seeing the market shrink, but there's no reason to not do it yourself. You don't need anybody's permission.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways.
Well, and you're seeing a lot of the publishers start with a Kickstarter. I mean, obviously the success that Boom had with the Keanu Reeves stuff and everything, and
I'll be honest, I like that a little less, and I'll say why. Because I feel like, I don't know that Keanu Reeves and Boom needs that money as much.
I'm hip. Yeah.
I don't want to be a gatekeeper. The thing I get really excited about is like when we did Cursed Pirate Girl.
Jeremy Bastian, indeed.
Yeah. I mean, like at that time, he was with Archaea and they wanted him to do it in color. And I was like, no, you envision this to be black and white. It should be black and white. He's like, well, they won't publish it. And I told him, I was like, look at, man, I'll publish it. I don't know how we'll do it. And at the time, Kickstarter was new. And I said, I think this would be a great, way to do it. And sure enough, I mean, it's, it takes him forever to do the books, because of how much work he does. But
yes.
But he's a perfect, that's a whole other tangent. He should be.
Yeah, he's a timeless storybook artist that, again, you see the work on the page. Not that other artists don't have their work on the page, but no, his attention to detail is amazing, and that's why it takes so long. But the end product is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, but with the AI, you could do it in like 2 seconds, though.
Oh, yeah.
You just got to write a book about hallucinations. It doesn't matter how many fingers.
Yeah, look, fingers could be a whole point. Of course, you can't control a damn thing you're doing, so like you can't really tell a story with it.
All right, so I guess you're telling me not to play one of my fake videos that I made where Joe Biden and others have wished me a happy 19th anniversary for World War.
Yeah,
I think it's hilarious, but
no. And again, that's the toy, and I don't mind that. Nobody minds the toy. obviously we're talking about real narrative and the dangers of narrative being usurped by AI. And no, I agree with you both.
But also the mediocrity of it, I mean, that it's
beyond mediocrity, the mundane, the mundane,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, as it is, if I may very quickly, talking about comic book movies, boys, because we've all seen them. There's a serious problem, and Robert Downey Jr. being announced as Dr. Doom doesn't solve the problem. I like the Russos a lot, and I do have faith in them and being able to make a good product. But let's be honest, the Marvel product since Endgame has been at best mediocre, and there's a sameness and a boring.
The fact that you're calling it a product is not maybe I mean, that may be a little indicative.
Well, that is the problem. That is the problem. And it's great having you both on and everything to say. Yes, I mean, you're absolutely right about that, and that's why what you've done with Caligula stands out, and that's truly, as you said, Tom, a lot of your Century Guild stuff. I mean, the times that you have back people like Zuli and Dan Brereton earlier and things like that. God, even I even wanted to mention your Edison.
My wax cylinder.
Wax. The wax crooner, man. Talk about that for a second.
I was working on a record, and I was feeling very overwhelmed by the technology. And I thought, well, what if I just get like an 8-track recorder? I was like, maybe I should just get a 4-track. And then I was thinking, I kept like simplifying, and I ended up back in the 19th century. And I was like, what if I got an old Edison recorder and just like where there's no microphone, there's nothing, there's no electricity. You're literally howling into a horn to try to vibrate a piece of mica to make it. And so I just thought, well, that would be interesting to make an entire record without electricity. And so I found the guy that could make the blanks. There's only 2 people in the world that knew how to do it. And we did a tintype photo for the cover, and we recorded on wax cylinder. Then I had it molded, and we released it on wax cylinder. No one had done that in 75 or 100 years. And then we took those wax things, ran them to tape, ran it from tape to a lathe, and then released a record. So it was a record that was entirely done, recorded without electricity. And it was just like a weird art project thing. And Jeremy Bastian did an alternate cover of that. We had our limited edition cover. And I wound up, someone that did a TEDx organization thing had heard about it and invited me to come out and give a talk about it. So I just kind of gave a little talk about what I did and why. And so it's kind of funny. It's like I have these avenues. It was like, okay, I think I want to do this art thing. And it's like, oh, and then I got into TEDx. And it was like, okay. And it's like, oh, I think I'm going to make a movie. Okay, I got into Cannes. And, and then I did. I don't know if you know this. This is just a fun nerd thing. So I did the Alphonse Mucha book. And we wound up doing a second printing. It's been selling really well. But one of the people who bought it was Michael Moorcock. And I'm such a fan. I'm such a fan. And his wife was really supportive of me during the process of making it. And so I asked him if he would give me a cover blurb for the next edition. And he said, yeah. And then as we're emailing back and forth, he was saying things like, well, I'm having a really hard time getting it down, getting my ideas down. And I said, well, I don't want to be cheeky, but I don't want to limit you. If you want to write more, I'll put it in as an introduction. He's like, oh, no, I don't have time. I don't have time. And so fast forward like 3 or 4 days, and I get an email from him. And it was I can't remember the words he used, but it was curmudgeonly and flippant and hilarious and charming. It was like, well, it looks like you got an introduction because I can't do anything with this. And he sent me a 1.5 pages of his thoughts, and it was great. And so I got an introduction from Michael Moorcock for that book. So yeah. So when people say, what do you do? It's like, well, I accidentally made a movie, and I accidentally became a publisher, and accidentally gave a TED talk. And
do you want to talk about what's next film wise?
Aaron and I wrote a movie that is a interesting take on witchcraft that people have said after Caligula, oh, do you want to do more film restorations? And I'm like, fuck no. Like, it was 5 years of being in someone else's head. But I do like the way you can take things that are really sexy and really strange and work with some kind of metaphysical themes. And so there was a movie that Aaron and I had started filming before the pandemic that's kind of on hold. And so to kind of get back into it, there's this witchcraft film. And our plan is to start shooting next late summer is the plan. And that's the thing. And so my big thing is just, we're still doing the educational publishing, but I'm working on a record right now and then this movie. And that was part of us closing the gallery. It was actually, I was talking to Grant Morrison and we were standing in the gallery and he was telling me about something he'd done with Magic Leap with the goggles. And he was telling me, he's like, I'm going to be in Scotland. You're going to be here. We're going to be talking in this space. And I felt like a whale oil salesman in the age of electricity. I was like, I'm the asshole paying rent for a physical gallery when none of our customers ever came in. They would buy online and also too, like the people who really loved the art that we were selling weren't the people who could afford it. And I felt more connection to those people, you know, than the people who were buying it because it felt like a blue chip asset or something. And so we started doing these books with the idea that they're kind of compartmentalized museum exhibitions and they last forever. And so we've got, you know, a dozen or so that we've done at this point, you know, and some are small and some are big, but it's the origin of everything you see at Comic-Con. Like we've got a series of books that are based on the German pulp novels called Der Orchidengarten. And it's weird science fiction. It's the first horror pulp. You know, so it's all these weird science fiction, horror, fantasy illustrations, but it's from 1919. And artists that most Americans have never seen. Lots of stuff from Berlin in the 20s. Of course, we just did a book with like Art Nouveau dragons and creatures. And we've got one on Kickstarter next week that's all really gothic, weird movie and theater posters, tons of European silent film stuff that no one's ever seen. And but that comes back to that kind of, you know, you start a gallery because you love art, and then you find yourself being like a nightclub owner where you're just holding these openings and there's lines around the block and everybody's there to drink for free. And, you know, and so that's how I kind of migrated away from having the physical space and then into doing the publishing as kind of my public service, and then, you know, spending time on these creative things that I want to do.
That's great, man. That's excellent. And good to hear that you got a new Kickstarter going in a week or so. If people want to back you and find out more about some of the Century Guild products, you know, where are your haunts online, social media and website or whatever?
Yeah, if you like, we talk about all of it on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Thomas Negovan. But if you sign up for the Century Guild mailing list, or, you know, we're on Century Guild and Thomas Negovan are on Instagram and all that stuff. And, you know, we're kind of in the normal places.
When do you start selling the physical DVD for Caligula?
It comes, so the premiere dates, they've got a preview night next Wednesday, and then it's in theaters Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I think Friday is the day that it's also available on the pay streaming. It's like $20, and it's on 2 platforms, and I don't remember what they are. And then there's other ones that it'll be on after that, and I think that they're doing I know they're doing pre-orders now. Unobstructed View is the company releasing it, but I think if you go to Severin or somebody like that, they've got some of the American ones. But I think if you go to Draft House Films, they've got all that stuff. Draft House is our distributor. And I think that the discs are coming out in October.
Okay.
I think that's what it is.
That's awesome.
It's so crazy long. Like, I started this in 2019. That when someone says to me, when is this coming out in theaters? Like, I've been saying, fuck if I know for so long that it's like, oh no, wait, we do know now. So even though they told me where it's streaming, I have this tape loop running in my head of just, I don't know. That I need to get these things into my head, but it's all imminent. Like, it's over the next 2 months. It's going to be in a lot of cities. Some cities I'll be doing Q&As and stuff like that. The LA one at the New Art, I'm really excited about, just because it's such a beautiful theater, and it's going to be in Chicago at the Music Box, September.
I was wondering, are you going to make it? Are you going to be there for it?
I live in Chicago again.
I assume, man, I was sending you stuff and putting Pacific times, assuming you were out there because of the gallery. Man, we got to have coffee.
I didn't tell anybody. Nobody knows.
Oh my God.
Because I loved LA, but I like it more visiting it. It got so hot. It's so crazy expensive. And I was one of those people that learned during the pandemic, it doesn't matter where you are. And I really wanted to have a little more liberty creatively, to not feel that I was under like a razor blade encrusted yoke of monthly expenses. And so that's the thing. So I'm way south. I'm technically not Chicago, but yeah, way out, more towards Doug.
I was gonna say you're up by Doug Claudio. Yeah, that's great.
I've seen it. Doug's the only guy I've seen actually, and I'm terrible. He's invited me over 1 million times and I haven't gone. But
I have a car. I'd be happy to meet you guys.
Yeah, we got to do it.
It's great, Tom. No, I'm really glad you're back, man.
It's been good. I love the Midwest, and the Music Box one I'm really excited about, because I mean, it's such a great theater. It's such a beautiful space, and to get to see that on that screen is going to be cool. So it's a huge theater. It's like 700 seats or something.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my God. No, absolutely, man. That's fantastic. Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Well, good luck with the LA Q&A that you're going to do next week. Next week from Saturday, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'll let you sip, and there we go. What theater again is it at?
The New Art, NUART, in Santa Monica. Cool.
Beautiful.
I do not have passes for any friends of mine watching this that will ask that. But yeah, it's a great theater. And I think what we're doing, there's a place next door called Cinephile.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a video store. Yeah, the video store next door. Yeah.
I think we're going to be doing something there in the couple hours before.
Nice.
Yeah. I think we're going to have some of the Bill Sienkiewicz posters there and be playing the soundtrack, and the composer will be in town. Aaron lives there. I'll be there. And so I think, I'll be posting on social media about it, but we're trying to make it it's our big LA launch. So I think it'll be fun. Where are you, Gabriel?
I'm in LA. Yeah.
Okay, because I noticed it was light there when we started.
Yeah.
I thought, he's somewhere.
But look, I can't get a pass, so I'm not going to this thing. Sorry.
Oh my God.
Well done,
Tom. New Art is a great theater, though, and having an event at Cinephile, going to screening New Art. That's great LA stuff.
Yeah.
That's excellent, man. And same with music. Obviously, Music Box in Chicago in that lesser second city way that Chicago is, but significant for our area.
Music Box is a way cooler theater. It's one of the best theaters in the country.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you remember the Varsity, Tom, when we were kids?
No, where was it?
It was in Evanston, and now they chopped it up into a bunch of little shops.
Oh.
But it had the same motif inside. For everyone listening and watching, it looks like you'd probably be able to describe it better, Tom. It looks like a stage, and there are fake balconies hanging over, but also a fake sky. It's like you're outside, and there are stars in the sky and everything.
I love those. The last time you and I were in a theater together,
tell me,
Chicago Theater.
Oh, was it for? Because I remember we were at the Biograph for Dave's thing. Chicago Theater. What did we see?
Ricky Gervais.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Yeah, man. Good Lord, that was a long time ago.
I was John's +1. He was like, "You want to go see Ricky Gervais?" I was like, "Do I?" Yes. Yes,
that's
I
right.
do. I've got
that was a good radio station.
That's why I remember it so much. Is I've got pictures of us like I did that.
That one radio station.
The selfie on the flip phone. It's probably like 10 DPI or something like that.
Yeah, they had sitting tickets at the Chicago Theater for all the big events. I saw Carol Burnett there that way. Mel Brooks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable Chicago Theater shows. Bill Burr was great there. Jim Gaffigan. But anyway, that was a long time ago. But my man, I'm so glad, dude. I'm really glad that we're able to catch up. This is great.
Yeah,
and I'm also really glad that you're back in town because we'll catch up more, for God's sake.
I will see you.
Excellent. And I'm glad you got a chance to meet Gabe. And truly, man, I
really
really
much, Gabe.
This is a great movie.
I'm a fan of your art, so obviously I knew your name.
Yeah. Thank you. I enjoyed getting a chance to watch this movie. I mean, like it was enlightening. Certainly, like to go back and watch the original as well. Fascinating stuff.
Absolutely, man. Great. Hey, worth the 5 years, Tom. I'm glad you're out the other end. But yeah, I think I think you accomplished a big thing here, and really now it's time to reap the benefits. So enjoy the victory lap. I think that's great, man.
I'm just happy we get to see it. Yeah, absolutely.
Tom Negovan, everybody. The film Caligula, now back in the zeitgeist, and you'll be hearing a lot about it through streamers and theaters and the like. So check it out. Thanks for watching. Scene Missing. I'm recording tomorrow night, and I got to get the videos out. But Nana Vister from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Major Kira herself, will be joining me in a pre-recorded conversation that I'm going to be conducting tomorrow night. So it will be released for everybody on Friday. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.